I wake up in a room that does not belong to me, which I know immediately because nothing in it feels earned. The ceiling is too high, the silence too intentional. Before my eyes are fully open, someone is already standing nearby, not breathing loudly, not shifting weight, just present. That's when it lands. For today, I am the president of China. My name is spoken softly but precisely. Xi Jinping. Not as an introduction, as a confirmation of reality. I haven't moved yet, but the room has already reorganized itself around that fact. Doors open without hands touching them. Phones vibrate somewhere beyond my reach. The air feels managed. Yesterday, I was a private person with private consequences. Today, the word private has been quietly retired. People don't wait for instructions. They anticipate them. Someone asks if I slept well, not because they care, but because the answer might shape the morning briefing. Another person apologizes for something I didn't notice. I realize apologies are now a form of currency. Protection appears in layers: visible, invisible, symbolic. No one asks if I want it. Want is no longer a useful category. I stand up, and that motion alone triggers activity. That's the first shock. Causality has changed. Actions no longer lead to reactions. Presence does. I haven't said anything yet, but rules are already bending. Schedules compress. Traffic patterns shift. Somewhere, a decision is being delayed until I speak, and I don't know what it is. The discomfort settles in fast. Not guilt, mismatch. My internal voice is still yesterday's voice, uncertain, unfinished, unqualified. But everyone else is responding to a version of me that feels fully formed, deliberate, inevitable. Authority has been assigned retroactively, like a title pasted over a draft. Messages arrive faster than thought. Red folders, screens lighting up, economic updates phrased as if stability is fragile glass. Security briefings delivered with calm faces and catastrophic subtext. Assistants want approvals, statements, silences. Silence, I'm learning, is also a statement now. Every word feels heavier than intent. A sentence can calm a market or freeze a career. A pause can be interpreted as strategy. I'm aware of my tone in a way that feels almost clinical, like monitoring a pulse. I think about control, about order, about how easily stability can be mistaken for truth when everyone is rewarded for compliance. There's no thrill here, no rush, just a quiet, spreading anxiety. Power has arrived all at once, without effort, without consent, without calibration. And the most unsettling part isn't what I can do. It's how quickly the world agrees that I already have. By the time the day properly starts, I've already decided to misuse it. Not in the cinematic sense, no grand gestures, no televised morality play. I misuse this power by being slightly too honest, in places where honesty has been professionally discouraged. I ask for meetings without agendas. I cancel others without explanation. I tell people they don't need to flatter me, then watch them fail to stop. The first uncomfortable choice is verbal. In a closed briefing, I answer a question without buffering it through ideology. I say a policy exists because control is easier than trust. I don't dress it up as harmony or historical necessity. I just say it. The room stiffens, not because anyone disagrees, but because I violated the choreography. Truth, I'm learning, is less offensive than unpredictability. Someone clears their throat. Someone else starts writing very carefully. I'm amused, briefly, by how a sentence that would be ignored from anyone else becomes a structural concern when it comes from me. No applause, no pushback, just quiet damage control. Later, I leave the building without cameras. That alone causes a problem. I insist on it, which creates a larger one. Security scrambles. Assistants negotiate with absence itself. I walk through a hospital wing that wasn't prepared for a visit, and suddenly it's a visit. A nurse freezes mid-step. A patient sits up straighter. I don't announce anything. I don't promise anything. I listen. This, apparently, is radical. By the time I'm back in the car, headlines are being drafted. Not about what I did, about what it signals. A quiet walk becomes a soft warning. An unrecorded conversation becomes a rumored pivot. I help someone privately, and the public response is suspicion. If there's no camera, the assumption is motive. I make another choice. I ignore public relations logic entirely. I refuse a polished speech and answer questions with unfinished sentences. I admit uncertainty. I let pauses hang. The reaction is immediate and theatrical. Analysts call it bold. Critics call it dangerous. Supporters call it historic. No one calls it what it is. A person talking like a person in a role that doesn't allow that. At some point, I realize I've become a headline generator by accident. Every ordinary action is inflated into intention. I drink tea with no statement attached, and it's framed as a shift in economic posture. I smile at the wrong moment, and it's decoded like a threat. Meaning is no longer tethered to reality. It's tethered to my face. This is where the disturbance sets in. I say something publicly that powerful people usually outsource to euphemism. I talk about stability as a substitute, not a virtue. I mention that order can be maintained while truth quietly disappears, and that the trade-off is often presented as maturity. The room doesn't react. The internet does. Within minutes, I'm both praised and condemned for the same sentence. One group says I'm finally being transparent. Another says I'm exposing weakness. Neither is listening to the words. They're reacting to the speaker. Truth hasn't changed, its reception has. I break another unspoken rule by refusing to correct misinterpretations. I let the distortions breathe. I watch institutions argue with versions of me that don't exist. The spectacle is revealing. Influence doesn't clarify reality, it multiplies it. What unsettles me isn't backlash, it's how easily people project meaning onto silence, onto gestures, onto nothing. Fame turns neutrality into narrative. Power turns ambiguity into offense. By the end of the day, I'm slightly reckless, not because I want to be disruptive, but because restraint feels dishonest. If this authority is temporary, then the only ethical use of it is exposure. Not reform, exposure. I see clearly now. Truth is not rare. Permission is. And power doesn't make truth louder. It makes it legible. It tells people whether they're allowed to hear it. As the day winds down, I feel less like a leader and more like a stress test. Every choice reveals how fragile meaning becomes when filtered through influence. I didn't reshape society today. I just nudged it and watched how violently it responded. Tomorrow, this power disappears. The systems remain. The interpretations remain. And the most uncomfortable realization is this. Nothing I said today was new. It just counted because of who I was allowed to be for a few hours. The last hours arrive without ceremony. Power doesn't fade gradually. It just stops being replenished. Messages slow. The room empties in small, respectful withdrawals. People begin asking tomorrow-shaped questions, the kind that assume continuity I no longer have. I can feel it happening before it's acknowledged. Attention loosens its grip. Protection becomes procedural instead of instinctive. Someone checks the time a little too often. The day is ending, and with it, the version of reality that bent around me. What's strange is that the loss comes before the exit. I haven't left the building yet, but my influence is already evaporating. I say something casually and notice it doesn't land the same way. No one writes it down. No one looks alarmed. My words are becoming lightweight again, shedding consequences by the minute. It's almost a relief. Almost. Tomorrow, doors will close without apology. Rules will return to their original settings. My opinions will go back to being opinions instead of indicators. The unsettling part isn't that this is happening, it's how cleanly it happens. Power doesn't argue when it leaves. It doesn't explain itself. It just moves on to the next person who can hold it. I think about fame, about how it doesn't eliminate problems so much as upgrade them. Ordinary stress becomes strategic stress. Loneliness becomes isolation with witnesses. Every gesture becomes a performance. Every silence becomes suspicious. There is no off-stage, only lower-resolution surveillance. For one day, I carried that weight. Carrying it permanently would grind a person down to something efficient and hollow. There's a dark humor in how easy it was to borrow this life. No resume, no test, no meritocratic struggle. Just a switch flipped overnight. And yet, the cost of maintaining it, really maintaining it, feels punishing. Not physically, psychologically. Living inside a role where authenticity is treated like a liability and rest looks like negligence. As the final meeting ends, someone thanks me for my time. My time. The phrase hits harder than expected. Time was the only thing I actually owned today, and even that was heavily scheduled. When I leave, the world doesn't snap back immediately. It never does. But I know it will. Tomorrow, I'll speak, and nothing will echo. I'll question something, and it will remain unanswered. The imbalance will correct itself. I return to normal life, changed in a way that's hard to explain. Not enlightened, not empowered, just disillusioned in a sharper, more specific way. I've seen how uneven influence really is, how temporary it can be, and how little it has to do with truth. The most disturbing part isn't losing power. It's realizing how much of reality listens only when it's spoken by the right mouth, and how quickly it stops caring when that mouth changes. Disclaimer. This video is a fictional, satirical thought experiment created for entertainment and reflection. It does not depict or represent the real thoughts, actions, intentions, policies, or private life of any real individual mentioned. The narrative is not a factual account and should not be interpreted as commentary on real events or personal behavior. Its purpose is to explore ideas about fame, power, authority, and influence in a conceptual and symbolic way, highlighting how perception and meaning shift with status. Any resemblance to real people or situations is purely illustrative and not intended as a personal portrayal or claim.